Welcome to 2-6, the coordinate system. We have two objectives today. One is to graph points on a coordinate plane, and two, graph algebraic relationships. Before we begin, let's talk about quadrants. They're the four regions separated by the x and y axis on the coordinate plane. The axes and points on the axes are not located in any quadrant. Well, what does that mean? Well, in Chapter 1, we learned about the first quadrant. In the first quadrant, everything was positive, meaning that we went to the right and we went up to graph our points. But now, we're going to introduce three more quadrants. Quadrant 2. Quadrant 2 is where the x is negative and the y will always be positive. Quadrant 3, where both the x and the y are negative. And the last quadrant, quadrant 4, is where the x is always positive and the y is negative. A point, or a ordered pair, could either be said to be in the first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, or fourth quadrant. But there comes a time where if a point is either on the x or y-axis, is in neither or any of the four quadrants. On this slide it says write the ordered pair that names each point. A little brief review is that of course all points are written as ordered pairs. That means x is first, y is second. Alright, I've located A on our coordinate plane, is right here. And of course I'm going to go for the x first. I notice that I start at 0, or the origin, and I have to move to the left to get to where x is, and that is a -3. In order to get to where A is located on the blue dot, I must also go up 2, and going up is a positive. So, our ordered pair for A is -3, 2. Next up is B. B is located in the fourth quadrant. It is right here. And once again, I'm going to start with the origin. And I notice that I have to move to the right to get where B is, and I have to move 4 spaces. So my x is a +4. Now, I'm going to have to go down to reach where the blue dot is, and I go down 2 spaces, and that's my y. So, the point B is at the x 4 and y -2, or my ordered pair 4, -2. Last is C. C is located here, and if you notice here, C is on the y-axis. It's not in any coordinate, but I could still find the ordered pair. I start at the origin. I notice that I don't have to go to the left or to the right from the origin, so that means that my x must be at 0. To get to the blue dot, I must go down, so I know I'm going negative, and I notice that it is 3 spaces. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is how you name your ordered pairs. Our next slide says graph and label each point on a coordinate plane. Name the quadrant in which each point lies in. Well, to help us out here, I will name my coordinates already. This one is the first coordinate, second coordinate. This is the third coordinate. And the last one is the fourth coordinate. Alright, with my coordinates labeled, now it's time to plot these points. D. I notice that D is x is at 2 and y is at 4. So I start at the origin. +2 means I go to the right, and a +4 means I go up 4. And I place a dot where the 2 and the 4 meet, and I label it D. So that means that D is in quadrant 1. Then I notice B, or E in this case, the x is a -3 and the y is a -2. That means I'm going to start at the origin. That's where the x and y axis meet. -3 means I move to the left for x, and then it goes -2 for y, and that means I go down 2 spaces. And this is where I plot the point for E. Now I notice that E is in the third quadrant, so I'll label that as the direction said. The last one, F. F is X is at 4 and Y is at 0. Start at the origin again. My X is 4, so that in a positive 4, that means I move to the right. My Y is 0, which states I don't go up or down from where I'm at. So I'm still on the x-axis. And according to the definitions in the first slide, if I am on the x or y-axis, I'm on none, or NA for not applicable, for the quadrant. In this slide, we're going to work with the second objective, graph algebraic relations. It states, the sum of two numbers is 5. If x represents the first number and y represents the second number, make a table of possible values for x and y, graph the ordered pairs, and describe the graph. There's a lot going on, so we'll break it into pieces. I'm going to deal with the first sentence. I notice that it describes an equation. The sum of two numbers is 5. In our second part of our problem, it tells me that I'm using x and y as my variables. So sum of two numbers I'm adding is equal to 5. That is going to help me fill out my table. You see I've made a T-chart, or a table, where I have one column of x and one column of y. Where did I get these numbers from? Well, since the problem did not give me any number, I chose some simple numbers to plug into my equation, and I picked 2, 1, 0, -2. So these should be pretty easy to work with. So I'm going to plug and chug. So wherever there's an x, I'll put 2. 2 plus y is equal to 5. Using mental math, the answer must be 3. And I'll continue all the way down the chart. 1 plus y is equal to 5. Y must be 4. And I continue going down the chart. Plug in 0 for x, 5. If I plug in -1, should be 6. And if I plug in -2, y should be 7. Using a T-chart or table chart such as this, you can see that these are actually ordered pairs, where x is first and y is second. And I'm going to go ahead and graph the ordered pairs on the graph. Here's the first one. X is 2, y is 3. I'll continue on. You can see I did 1 and 4 and 0 and 5. Now I'm going to go into my negative numbers. So I'm going to go to the left, -1, but I'm also going to go up 6. And my final ordered pair is -2, and I'm going to go up 7. Looking at the ordered pairs that I just graphed or plotted, I notice that my graph is a straight line. So there's your description, and that'll be it for this slide.